Welcome everyone, my name's Mark, this is Reptile Shenanigans, and today I want to ask the question, what makes reptiles so flipping addictive? So thanks for joining me on my very first YouTube video. I've decided to set up a YouTube channel mainly for posterity, for myself. So, you know, in future years I might be able to look back and check out my own journey. That I think that'll be interesting to see in, you know, a couple of years time, whatever, 3, 4, 5 years time, where how my views have changed from today. And of course I won't know that until the time comes. I'm going to try and do my videos in a reasonably unedited way, but this is already my 5th attempt at this tiny little part of the video, and already it's not going according to plan, but we'll see. But any edits and cuts hopefully won't be overly noticeable, but probably will be. So here we go. I'm using my phone for this first video. I do actually have a DSLR camera, but hopefully, you know, the sound and that will be adequate for what I want to do. Anyway, enough of that. Let's start my first question, which I think is a pertinent question, given it's my tagline, and that is, why are reptiles just so addictive? And I think that is a multifaceted question, guys. I mean, it can be so many different reasons for so many different people. Everyone, of course, is different and individual, which is part of what makes this hobby so fantastic. But I'm going to give you my ideas anyway. So let me tell you how it all began for me. I've grown up in a pet-loving family all my life, but it's been mammals, you know, cats, dogs, rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, etc. I remember a mate from school bringing in one day a corn snake in a little box, and I just fell in love with it immediately. But when I went home and asked my parents, I was only, you know, 13 or so at the time, if I could have a snake, and they found out that they ate rodents. That was a no-go. No rodents in the freezer. There was no point discussing any further. That was the end of that. Then a few years later, life moved on. I got married, and I remember looking in a pet shop with her one day. We were actually looking at the birds. A leopard gecko. Just loved it. And I said to my wife, I really love that leopard gecko. What does it eat? Insects, darling. That's not happening. And that was the end of that conversation. Forward on a few years later, and now I have children. Now, the power of children is something quite phenomenal. And guess what my daughter asked for when she was about 9 years old? She wanted a snake. What do they eat? Rodents? That's not happening. So we discussed the idea of a leopard gecko. Cut a long story short, I went out, bought a leopard gecko, and the family just absolutely fell head over heels. I'm not going to get any animals out today, but I'll stick some pictures or some video footage up of Sunny, my first ever reptile. This was about April last year. So I haven't been keeping reptiles in the grand scheme of things for a massive amount of time, but I just fell for the hobby, hook, line and sinker. So a few months later, after my wife and I had fallen in love with Sunny, our leopard gecko, I brought up the idea of another. This time it was a pink-tongued skink. I love skinks. At the time, didn't think I had space for a blue tongue, but they're quite hard to get hold of, pink-tongued skinks, but I found one or two, floated that idea. She was up for that, so I bought that, and again, straight away, bang, love it. So, about a month later, I floated the idea again of a snake, and it was met with a little bit of trepidation, shall we say. But after a couple of weeks of perseverance and a bit of nagging, if I'm honest, between both apologies for the lockdown here, both myself and my daughter, we finally managed to convince my wife to get a snake. And the first snake we got, I bought it off a young kid, thought it was a good idea to get a pet snake at the time, and then, you know, found teenagehood and started going out, and obviously dropped that idea like a brick. So I took the snake on, and that's Dexter. He is my snow corn. Again, I'll stick some pictures or some footage up here for you to have a look. And it went on from there really, and I've got now I've got about 25 reptiles, and mainly snakes, and I'll discuss in another video all my different types of reptiles and snakes that I've got. Okay, now the thing about reptiles, in my opinion, is that they don't need a huge amount of effort to keep them fit and healthy and doing well. Obviously that varies between different species. Lizards obviously certainly require more generally in day-to-day, I would suggest. But I found that after I had about, I don't know, 5 or 6 reptiles, it just wasn't enough. You know, I was getting up in the morning before work, checking them all out, making sure they were okay, changing their water, spot cleaning, and I was done within 20 minutes. You know, it's okay to handle reptiles, but they don't really require it. Some like it more than others, and I definitely notice a difference, not just between species, but between certain individual animals within the same species, that some actually, I think, quite enjoy coming out, being handled, having a little roam around, whereas others really would rather be left alone. And so really, even when you do take them out, it's normally only for sort of 10-15 minutes at a time, and they require very little. The other thing is they generally, again, this is probably more towards snakes, but they don't take up a huge amount of space. And the reason they don't take up a huge amount of space is because they don't want a huge amount of space. Again, of course, there are certain lizards, particularly, and larger snakes that require a fair size viv, and particularly, you know, really active lizards such as monitors, etc. They'll use as much space as you give them. So that's not that's a generalisation, but particularly with ball pythons, for example, you know, anything bigger than a 33 litre tub in general, it's going to be too big for them. They're going to go off their food. They're just not going to enjoy it. They're not going to thrive. And because of that, it means you can have more, and because they come in such, I mean, I haven't looked up the number of genes on Morph Market or anything, but the number of genes is phenomenal, and it's growing all the time. And of course, that's just single genes. The number of combinations is almost infinite. Different colour and pattern mutations put together in different combos, creating new looks, and it's ever changing and moves on and on. And I believe that pushes the hobby, keeps it going, keeps it thriving. When you look at some of the stuff, some of the, you know, the big guys out there, you know, your Billies from Mutation Creation, your JKs, your Roses, all these guys. And you've seen some of the stuff they do, and some of the British guys too. You know, Paul from Urban Constrictors and of course Gavin from Balls to You, who both only work with fantastic quality animals and are always, I would suggest anyway, as a noob, pushing boundaries. So, and that brings me on to the next aspect of the reptile hobby, which I believe makes it equally as addictive. Okay, so I think the second reason for reptiles being so addictive is the community. Now, I've got to be honest, I've already said I've only really been keeping reptiles for just over a year now, and this is the first season I've ever decided to naturally to start breeding reptiles. Over the last few months or so, I have seen this explosion of YouTube channels coming out, different breeders, particularly in the ball python community. Some guys like MJ's Pythons, that's Marv and Jay. There's Sam from SRS, Matt from SPR. There's some guys who've been doing it a bit longer, you know, guys like Adam from TA. And then there's some of the guys who've been doing it a long time now, and you know, guys like Gavin from Balls to You and Paul from Urban Constrictors. If you haven't seen any of their videos, firstly, don't know what you're doing watching mine, and secondly, I'll stick all the links down. I'm not sure how to do it yet, but I'll give it a whirl. I'm sure it can't be that difficult in the descriptions below. Guys like this have given me massive inspiration. I watch them. I've been watching their lives on Instagram. I keep up to date with all their YouTube vids, and watching them all sort of coming together, doing their thing. It's discussing snakes and having a laugh. It you know, it makes me want to be a part of that, and that's another reason I started doing these YouTube videos, to you know, to push myself, get my name out there. Try and get myself introduced to some of these guys and see where we go from there. Marv and from MJ's and Sam from Sam's Royal Serpents have both done videos over the last few days about how wonderful the community is, and being a complete noob right now, I'm seeing that, but I'm not massively a part of that just yet. So fingers crossed, and if any of you guys want to reach out, obviously I'd appreciate that so much. So there we are, guys. There's my sort of take so far. This is obviously start days for me. Like I've already said, not 100% sure how many people, if any, are going to be watching this. But stay tuned for some more. I've got a couple of ideas coming up, and I'm hoping that they're not going to run out too quickly. But yes, stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time.